And we're back. John Delarose here, the leading Hispanic voice in science fiction. For Steam and Country, my hit steampunk novel is out right now. People are loving it. People still buying it every day. Things are good. I got Gravity of the Game, my baseball and space novella, which came out in October, and it's cooking as well. People are loving it. Talking Hugo and Nebula Awards on that one. Everybody loves it. All right. So I read Kameron Hurley's blog this morning. And I'm not here to rail on Kameron Hurley, so if you're expecting that, that's not going to be happening today. Kameron Hurley is a very well-renowned space opera writer and writes for several different publications. Been around for a long time, right? Yeah, I'll talk about that in a second. I really like promoting good new authors because my goal is to change sort of the culture and sort of the climate of the industry, which actually ties into this in a lot of ways. I have to, even though you know it takes a lot of my time to do the promotions that I do sometimes. I spend a lot of time on some people. It's worth it because one person alone is not going to be able to change this industry to do anything about it. I'm a blip. I'm doing well, but I'm a blip, right? So I need to have a army of 100 other blips with me if we're really going to actually do something about creating a cultural movement that's going to be big. And so I want that to happen. Obviously, I can't spend time on everybody doing that. If I did, I'd never get any time writing, and that'd be a problem. But I try to help out as much as I can, especially when somebody new is coming out, to give them a little boost, and I think that's important. So, speaking of boost, so I'm switching up my protein shakes this morning. So, I've already had my my smoothie, which I've made on the channel before and showed people how to make this morning with a bunch of different seeds. But this is a new protein shake. It's a vegan protein shake. It's made from a bunch of different plant stuff. I like it a little better than the whey protein because I try to avoid dairy products because those end up being inflammatories, and inflammatories are bad for the wrists, bad for the writing, and all that. There's no soy in here, no soy products. Nah, I checked that the first thing. It's important. That's actually almost more important than no dairy. You got to keep the T levels up, right? If you want to keep going, right? I'm not gonna lie, it tastes dirty. I mean, it's nasty stuff. Especially the vanilla. The vanilla one has an even dirtier taste. It really tastes like I'm just putting a spoonful of dirt into my mouth. It's terrible. But I'm gonna have some right here because got to keep the protein going. Losing weight, things are going good. All right, let's get to this blog. Hopefully you guys had a shot to read this. I posted it up on my Twitter a little bit ago. The blog is titled "What Comes Next? Everything," and it was posted yesterday by Kameron. And Kameron is a pretty good writer. She's very good at dialing into people's emotions, and that at the end of the day is what an author's job is. And I don't think Kameron likes me very much for obvious reasons, but Cameron's never lambasted me, so I'm not gonna sit here and talk smack. It's just not gonna happen. I don't do that to people who don't lambast me. So, but I am interested in this blog. I read this entire blog, and I was interested in it just from a sort of perspective level on mindset and a perspective level on sort of the state of the industry. And there's some good points, actually, I saw in all of it. It starts out, Kameron says, "When I was a wide-eyed baby author, I scoffed at what was known as the business of the bitter midlister." And I'll pause right there. I'll talk about this. The bitter midlister, Kameron defines it for people reading, was an established author who has written 3 or more books but isn't making a living as a writer, or isn't making a very good living, or at least hasn't seen some success, but didn't feel like it was on par with what they deserved. And they're usually very, very bitter about it. Yeah, I notice this all the time. The midlisters in the business, even the ones making a little living, kind of get very bitter. I don't know. There's probably a year amount to their careers there, but it just seems like they're unhappy with what they're doing. And at that point, it's like if you're not happy, just don't do this. This game is the content game is a lot of work for little reward until you reach a certain sort of critical mass. And there's no reason to be bitter about it. I mean, you're sitting here making up stories and having fun with it, right? And I think Cameron's addressing that, and I guess Cameron used to kind of talk about that a bit in her younger days, and from what the blog talks about here. But this blog kind of takes a transition. It's really interesting. The people who rant about the success of their best-selling peers has nothing to do with quality, but with luck or favoritism, or the game is rigged. And it goes off from there. And yes, this exists. I see it in a lot of authors. I actually see it in a lot of indie authors too. They do they get a little, I don't know, why aren't I selling, blah 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 sort of deal about it, and it's not fun to watch. It comes down to you should never post stuff like that. Never. Even if you're feeling it. This is the problem with social media these days. So you would have never seen this in the 80s or 70s to an extent. Maybe some people would have complained at cons, but it wouldn't be out there for the world to see and all that, right? But people should never post that sort of stuff because people like winners is the bottom line. If you look like you're winning, people are attracted to that. People love that. It's a big thing. I would never complain about sales. I would never post numbers that look anything less than stellar. There's no reason to do that. It's a bad move, and Cameron is aware of this. As she says, we've all met or heard from bitter midlisters. So it's interesting. It's interesting. Now, I've watched Cameron's posts over the last years. When Cameron kind of came on my radar, it was during the hashtag Space Opera Week that Tor.com ran last year. It's still this year. I guess it was summer of this year. It hasn't actually been very long. But I took over that hashtag because I wanted to actually talk about space opera, and I saw that the people running that on the Tor.com website were kind of just complaining about identity politics and weren't actually talking about the genre of fiction books. And honestly, I got to say to Cameron, like, I've seen a lot of your posts, and you post a lot of this similar stuff where it's like, I'm not making as much as I'd like, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's not, I don't know, it's a mindset thing, right? We can look at anything the same way, right? Or different ways. We can look at the fact that the vast majority of books only sell about 200, 300 copies, right? Vast majority. We're not even talking like 50%. We're talking like 70%. Sell 200, 300 copies or less, right? And you got to say, well, geez, I'm in the top 25, 30% because I sold 400 books. Which is not, I've sold a lot more than that, but that you can look at things that way, or you can look at things as I've sold 400 books, I'm a failure, right? And it's all on how you look at things. Now, if you are online and you've sold your 400 books and you say, gosh, I'm so happy people are buying my books, it's amazing, I can't believe this, that's going to go, some people are going to see that. They're going to see you're successful. They're going to see some people like your work, and they're going to go, great, I'm going to check this out because it seems interesting. Now, it's slow going. It takes a lot of effort to keep that rolling, but that sort of positive attitude and that sort of positivity is it's captivating. People love it. People want to interact with it. People want that in their lives, right? I think that's a mindset sort of thing. That's what you feel about something and what you should say publicly. Correct. There's a lot of that, and of course with social media it makes it a lot harder to just stay with like what would I publicly say versus what you have to be very disciplined about that, and I'm not disciplined at all. I just spent the last hour mocking Ice Cube. I mean, there's no reason I should do that, but it was fun, so I did. That's the sort of thing. I don't know, but I feel like things like that nobody's going to care in 15 minutes that I mocked Ice Cube. If I left an impression that I was really down in the dumps about writing and not enjoying writing, I think that would leave a bigger impression and would get people, because it actually is closer hitting with my brand, and therefore people would kind of get turned off and not check in on things, and so that's why I'd never do that. But there's some interesting parts here. I'm big into the Dark Triad Man, which is Ivan Throne, and he actually has some similar points to this next section in the book, which was brought up by Purpley One, a follower of mine, in the comments when I was posting this earlier. And Ivan Throne takes some of this and he twists it, he turns it on its head. So this is an interesting portion here. There's an interesting truth about these complaints. Publishing is not a meritocracy. Correct. Writing great work does not guarantee success. Correct. Probably the best science fiction book, the best hard science fiction book I've read in the last 10 years or so. I mean, this guy is on par with Heinlein, with Spider Robinson. I mean, he's got that level of talent. He sold less than 100 copies of his book just because he can't market himself. It was blown away book, but he has no ability to market himself. Less than 100 copies. It's true. Shitty books or mediocre books or a book you personally cannot stand make many authors a good living. Also true. It may not seem fair that someone else was able to change the names of their fan fiction novel and become a mega bestseller, but you know what? They wrote something people clearly wanted to read and most probably had some big publishing marketing dollars behind them. I agree with that. I don't agree with the big publishing marketing. I think that is a myth, and authors fall into this, and it's a trap. Authors on the traditional level and on the indie level fall into this. The indie level goes, you know what? If I only had some marketing, I don't know. Maybe I'd be getting a little further, and that's why they fall into this cycle of actually submitting to traditional publishing, because they think, hey, need some protein, yeah. They think, hey, if I just got on this Angry Robot thing, so Angry Robot's a publishing company, and they're having open submissions right now. If I just got on Angry Robot's list, and they actually published Kameron Hurley, so it also ties in. Wow, I'm good at that. If I just got on this Angry Robot thing and got on their thing, I'd get some marketing dollars, and then I'd get some traction, right? Newsflash: Angry Robot is going to publish your book. They're going to put a beautiful cover on it. They're going to probably do some good edits on it, and then they're going to say release, and they'll post it to their Twitter account, and you'll get a few sales from that, and that's it. So you're not going to get as far as you think with traditional publishing marketing dollars. It doesn't actually do anything on that regard. I have a friend who worked for one of the bigger companies and released her debut novel this year, and it's selling less than mine. And I've put zero marketing dollars into it. The bigger company at least had a publicist working for them who did some work, I guess. But you know, it doesn't guarantee anything. That push doesn't guarantee anything. So I don't agree with that. I don't think the marketing dollars do all that much. I think it's easy once something goes a little viral to capitalize on the traction, but the lie is that a big traditional publisher is going to push your book as a debut author or even as an author, you know, with 3 or 4 books that nobody's heard of into something that's a lot bigger than it is. It's interesting. So that was a digression. All right, so here's where it gets interesting. Life isn't fair. Publishing isn't fair. The world isn't fair. You aren't owed anything. These are words that are absolutely true, and this gets back to the dark triad man sort of thing. The world is not fair. The world is a evil place. The world is against you, and you have one life, and it is going to end in death. That is the dark triad man philosophy, right? But you have a fleeting moment in which you get to choose whether you get to make the most of it and get to be satisfied and get to laugh in the face of all of this, or you get to, or you can suffer and wallow through it. And that's what the Dark Triad Man's 9 laws are all about. And it's taking this, which is the first portion. It is acknowledging the unfairness of life and the unfairness of everything, but it adds the mindset on top of it where I don't care. I don't care. I'm going to do something and I'm going to win anyway. And that's the difference, I think, between a person who really elevates themselves to success or not. Now, like I said, Kameron Hurley's had some good success in the publishing industry, and you know, she says she needs more to do a pretty good living, and that's probably true. But the mindset here, I mean, Kameron, you're at the top, you know, 1% of writers in terms of who people know in this field, in terms of who people respect in this field. You are in a beautiful spot. Utilize it, capitalize on it. Talk about how blessed you are. Talk about how things are going great. And that's my big advice on how to really break through to the next level here. It's not going to matter. It's not going to matter what happens with the. It's not going to matter what happens with your writing skills. Your writing skills are probably. I mean, you probably only can get marginally better at this point. You've obviously got experience, right? But there's the positivity, the thinking what you want and visualizing the way you want things to be and believing in it is really it changes reality. It really does. You can change reality just by doing that, and I can't stress that enough. I really can't stress that enough. People don't buy it, but it's really hard. I mean, to be fair, I make it sound easy, but if you're in a mindset where you're not happy in life and you're not happy with what you've achieved or what you've done, where things are going, it is really hard to break out of that, and I understand that. But you can. I posted another post by Delilah Dawson. She's another. She's written I think a Star Wars novelization or two. Another Midlister doing pretty well. And where is this? Let me find it. She says it's a little different of a topic, but it ties in. She says, the fact of the matter, most people you consider charismatic and savvy were not born that way. They honed it as a skill, working on the emotional and physical, learning how to read signals while building confidence. It's a skill. It takes time and practice. And your mindset takes time and practice the same way. If you want to keep that positive outlook, if you want to feel good about everything, you can do it. It takes practice. You got to force yourself to do it at first. I forced myself to do it at first. I did it a long time ago, and I did it in a little different of a context, which is, I'm going to talk about this. This is not PC or cool. People, but so be prepared for the rees here, right? All right, I trained myself into this when I was about 19, 20, and I trained myself into a good interaction socially and a good interaction with the mindset, and I did it in the context of when I was trying to date. So I was in college, and I'm very active in almost every online community I get into. And so I found a book which was pretty funny, which I bought it just because it was funny, and it had like Bible pages, and it was one of those pickup artist books, and I don't remember the title of it at all, but I thought it was hilarious because it was a Bible, but like how to pick up chicks, right? And there was some advice in there, and a lot of the advice in there was just it came down to what works in sales in any regard. And honestly, if you're trying to date, if you're trying to make friends, if you're trying to sell a product, it's all the same skill. It's all exactly the same skill. So it comes down to put yourself out there, just be confident in yourself. Know that you are offering something of value, and don't believe that the other person across from you has any more value than you do, and you will succeed in what you're trying at. It's a numbers game, and it'll work out. And it said one of the first things that they wanted you to do is to desensitize yourself to rejection, right? And authors have to do this big time because the whole author game is rejection until you get to a certain point, right? And even then, big pro authors often get rejected in their stories, right? If you're playing the submission game. But if you are, you can't let the rejections get you down. You can't even think about it. You got to, my boy Sean Hazlett yesterday, when he came on, he said, I mark my rejections, I catalog them, and I actually try to attain a certain amount, and I wear them as a badge of honor. And that's the same thing I did in my college days when I went to ask out several women. And what they did is the book said to ask out 100 women, go to a mall or something where it's a lot of people, so it's not, and it's kind of anonymous. You're not going to run into these people again. But just ask out 100 over the course of like 2-3 days. Just get as many no's as possible. Your goal is to accumulate 100 no's, so that you realize that when somebody says no, you don't feel down about yourself anymore because you've already been through it 100 times. Like why do you care? And once you get to the step of not caring, and seriously, apply this to anything else. Don't take this on face value for picking up chicks or whatever. I mean, it obviously worked for me, but use it for more noble causes, right? So once you get to that step, it doesn't feel bad to get rejected. And once it doesn't feel bad to get rejected, you don't worry about rejection, and you actually feel better about yourself. You go, you know what? I've got some value. Once you come across as having value, and this works better in person than it does via email, so that's why I don't like the submission game sort of thing. with authors. But once you come across as positive, once you come across as winning, once you come across as confident in yourself, people respect that and people gravitate towards that. And your odds will start to go up. So I noticed that in my first pass at this, I think I got 10 phone numbers out of 100. My second pass at this, I got about 30, 40 phone numbers out of 100, just because I'm better at what I was doing at that point, right? And if that was your goal, that was my goal when I was 19, 20, of course. But, it's the same thing. It's the same thing in writing. It's the same thing in selling any product. By the way, buy my new t-shirts. They're online at Crypto Fashion. All right. So I'm going through this. And next, so Kameron Hurley, after this point, does not go into the good mindset elements of this like I just kind of gave you. But instead goes on to the, I'm increasingly starting to notice my bitter midlister voice, which she's made an acronym of called BMV. Which is good. I mean, Kameron, this is just brilliant writing in terms of blog. Kameron obviously knows what she's doing in terms of writing. It's not fair. It's not fair people wrote one book are doing better, more financially successful. And she goes on. She gives some examples. She gives some examples of her stuff of what she wishes was happening. And I'm going to go back to the Scott Adams end of things. I've talked about Scott Adams a lot this morning on my Twitter. But Scott Adams has a lot to deal with persuasion, and I'm obviously very interested in persuasion as I've been talking about this. But Scott Adams, one of the things he said in his book about his life is he's noticed that the people who are successful don't necessarily have goals, right? And I gotta kind of define that. But if my goal is to sell 10,000 books of my next book, it's a very clear line where it's I sell 10,000 or I sell 9,999. I failed, right? And if you set yourself those clear lines, you get yourself into a rut where you can feel like you're failing all the time, especially if your original goals were too lofty. And then what happens is your goals next time get lower and lower and lower and lower until you start to settle for stuff, right? And when you do that, you've kind of lost your momentum. You've lost your winning ability, and you've lost your mindset where you actually have confidence in yourself. And then you start to lose because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So winning people typically don't have goals. They have systems, is what Scott Adams says in his book. And the systems that they set up are things like, okay, so I'm going to work an hour a day at selling my book. And once you set up that I'm going to work, you're doing something productive, you feel productive, and when you've accomplished the work, you feel good. And once you feel good, the confidence builds, and you can do more work. You see how that works? And that's how it goes, and that's how I'm starting to just steamroll this stuff into a lot of different stuff. This is why I am the person with one or two books who has two books out that are very successful. I just published them through a small press, no marketing dollars whatsoever. I've got a Patreon that actually is doing very well for its first month. I wasn't expecting this. That I'm writing short stories for. It'll be out once a month. I've got my T-shirt line now through a company who saw how my book sold, and they want to help me build my brand. I mean, and I'm working with some comic artists to create some comic content in addition to my books. I mean, I've got a lot going on. It's awesome, and it's not because I had any tangible goals. I didn't set out there and go, I want to sell 10,000 books. I went out there and I just sold my book, and I'll sell it one-on-one until it gets me enough people to where I can't do one-on-one, and I still can do one-on-one, thankfully, but it's starting to change and it's starting to get big. And Kameron puts it out. When you sit around making wishes like that, it makes you realize how futile they all are. Yes, you should not wish. If you believe something and you go for it, it will happen. You can make your own reality. Don't sit around and wish. I agree with this 100%. She gets a little political here, and I'm going to ignore that. Here's what starts to change. Yeah, I'm just getting started. And I'm glad Kameron actually ended this on a positive note. When we reach the end of the year or the middle of our lives, it can be tempting to look back and see only the things we didn't do, all the successes we didn't have, instead of being grateful for how far we have and celebrate the successes we did achieve. And I agree with that. She has a lot of projects on the deck, and she says, I'm going to be a better writer, which is great. Now, but Cameron's qualm here, and what she's upset with, kind of in her life, is not her writing skill. She doesn't say anything where she wishes her writing skill was better. She obviously believes her writing skill is great. Like I said, I've seen Cameron's got talent and has refined that talent by working. I mean, I've got nothing bad to say on that front. So I don't think, and as she said above, writing's not a meritocracy necessarily. You have to have it. No, don't get wrong. Yeah, 30. No. 37 is it is middle age. Come on, this is when you start to deal with these crises in your life and thinking, well, what am I doing? And am I on the right path? This happens in your mid 30s. This is totally normal. But I think the focus on I'll be working harder and doing better on my projects is not where Kameron needs to be. I think Kameron needs to work on the mindset of I'm going to win, and these projects are going to be so good because I have worked for so long that they're going to be huge successes, and those successes are going to come down the road, and it is going to happen. It is going to happen, and that is my total advice through this entire thing. I'm kind of running out of time here because I got a big business meeting in San Francisco in a few minutes, and I have to head out there. But you have to you kind of stop caring. Yeah, right. Well, you have the crisis of the 30s where you want to make sure you're on the same path, and then at some point that changes. You go through life stages, and the crises are different in different life stages. But I'm not going to mock somebody for I definitely have these thoughts. When I'm in the laying awake at night, going, "Geez, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing?" Now, it's easier for me because when I have those thoughts, I stop immediately and I say, and I close my eyes, I pray, and I say, God, am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? Please show me what I'm supposed to be doing. And the calm that comes from that is a big difference. And if you're not a Christian, you just can't get that. And that also is a big influence on my life. I mean, pray every day, guys. It's so important. But the mindset after that, the mindset of I'm going to win, my works are great, is how you get ahead. And that's the bottom line. And I hope Kameron adopts this. So interesting blog. I do appreciate the content. I mean, there is some good industry stuff here. There's some truth about how dark the world is. But the way to overcome it is just working on the way one talks to yourself, right? And if you talk to yourself in the right way, good things start to happen. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. I hope it was fun, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow.